Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MakerDAO Scientific Governance and Risk Meeting, number 141, taking place on Thursday, May 13th at 1700 UTC. My name is Long for Wisdom. I'm the governance facilitator at MakerDAO. I'm joined by a bunch of Maker people. We've got our usual agenda. We're going to have some updates from the some of the core groups at Maker. Then we'll sort of get into our MIPS inclusion review, and then we'll sort of go into discussions and general Q&A. So normal sort of preamble. If you want to sort of ask questions or comment or start a conversation with one of the people that's presenting or doing an update, please do. We like hearing from people. All right. So I guess with that, I will go into the governance update for the week. So let's see, last week's executive got the hat and passed a little while ago today, so it hasn't quite been executed yet. But that will bring the core unit distributions for May, I believe, to the ratified core units. And it also moves a bunch of the ERC20 assets to liquidations 2.0, which is the new liquidation system. We also had a number of polls this week as well, all of which finished a little while ago. So first we have some MIPS polls. We had the direct deposit module, I think that's MIP 50, continues to the next stage. The SES core unit continues to the next stage. The MIP 0 amendments continue to the next stage. MIP 51, which revamps the governance cycle, also moves to the next stage. So we did have a couple of inclusion polls fail to move forward in this governance cycle. So that was the strategic Marcoms core units proposals and the staking rewards proposal. So these will move, just to sort of clear up what happens with these. These will either move back to RFC if the authors wish to continue working on them, or potentially dropped if the authors decide that's what they prefer. So in terms of other polls, we also had the monthly parameter changes proposal from the Maker Open Market Committee. That passed. So we should see that in this week's executive, along with, I believe, we're moving the Uniswap LPs, updating the oracles on the Uniswap LPs to take into account some of the audit results. I'm sure Nick will talk about that in a little bit. In terms of GovAlpha, so the governance core units, I've been kind of working on our budget for the next quarter, and that's now in the forum. Sort of more general coordination, doing some forum moderation a little bit. Perhaps not as much as I should have been, but we'll see. Pros posted his facilitator proposal, which is awesome. Kind of looking to join me as a facilitator of GovAlpha, and yeah, give us another governance facilitator, which will be awesome if that passes, at least in my opinion. He's also been doing some coordination with SourceCred and a couple of other groups, kind of around budgeting stuff and general coordination. Eli's sort of continued working on forum modifications, sort of done some moderation stuff as well. I think I pinned a post of his which kind of calls for sort of good faith engagement from all participants on the forum. Pablo's been working on the MIPS and MIPS portal, sort of generally doing some MIPS fixes, kind of adding tags to MIPS, generally making some good changes and cleaning some things up. And David and Charles have been doing the usual sort of MIP editor responsibilities. They've also been working on onboarding Pablo as well. I think we're going to start moving towards sort of Pablo taking the role of MIP editor. So that's sort of at an early stage. All right, I think that covers my updates, which brings us to forum at a glance. Is this paid this week?
It sure is. Grab the link for everyone here. There it is. Lots going on on the forum this week. A lot of it is in MIPS and pre-MIP discussions, so I didn't want to steal the MIP editor's thunder, but lots of good stuff there, so pay attention later. As far as like a 3-point summary, yeah, lots and lots of MIPS. So I did include a link on there for the RFC stage. That way you can take a look and see at everything that's asking for comments before it moves on. As Long alluded to earlier, we do have 5 core units receiving their monthly budgets. That'll take place on Monday because of the office hours modifier. And we're distributing a little over 390,000 die for those 5 core units. Other cool thing going on is there's been plenty of MKR burning going with the alert module. Obviously, that kind of makes it intermittent. It'll be on for a little bit and then off while we raise it back to that kind of expected line, burning about 25% of our incoming revenue. I believe I said there's about 83 MKR tokens burned just in the last 24 hours. So very excited to see that starting up again. In terms of announcements, a big one is the Liquidations 2.0 portal is live. This allows anyone to participate pretty easily. And remember, due to the Dutch auctions, flash loans are enabled, meaning you no longer need that like giant pool of liquidity to take part. Other cool announcement, SES is looking to people to help identify some core MakerDAO risks and opportunities. So that's a pretty good post to leave your 2 cents on. Lots of active discussions going on. Like I said, some of them will be covered later. A couple of cool, interesting ones. One is Paper Imperium asking who does routine due diligence for the DAO. So lots of good discussion going on there about what we should be looking into when people ask us for money. Got a new drop token for the real world assets. That's going to be Fortuna Phi. And they have their risk evaluation posted in the forum, getting a lot of back and forth there, if you want to check that out. And likewise, we had Greg announcing that the Real World Asset Company is coming live to serve as a bridge, to bridge the gap between legacy and credit markets and MakerDAO. Pretty light on signals, possibly due to all the MIPS. So there's just one that's still going on from Matt about increasing the DSR. And interesting enough, there are a few different options. So you can not only say if you want to increase the DSR or not, but as well as kind of generally what your feelings are towards that. And that's probably enough talking for me. So kick it back over to Long here.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Pros. Does anybody else have any kind of questions or comments for either me or Pros or anyone else?
Yeah, I believe so. One small correction. So the UI is live for liquidations. I don't think that it's flash loan enabled. I think you have to show up with the DAI and actually bid, but that's still pretty great. So any Web3 user can just show up there and bid on an auction.
Awesome, good to have that correction. If there's no other comments, let's move on to the protocol engineering updates then.
Great. Yep. Hey everybody, Chris from Protocol Engineering. I may be a little pixelated. I don't know. I've got like a bunch of nodes syncing in the background, so this is an experiment. So thank you, Elon Musk. So he may have rugged everyone on Bitcoin, but I'm using Starlink to sync nodes, so it's pretty sweet. Yeah, we posted the postmortem of the end bug in the forums. So if you guys haven't read that yet, you can go there and check it out. You know, there's some action items that sort of came out of that, and I think that's a practice that we're going to continue to follow. Anytime we get a bug like that or find anything like that, I think it's a good idea to iterate. The entire process is supposed to be a blameless process. We're just hoping that like all teams involved can kind of end up at a better outcome in the future. So we also posted the DSS Fest, and the backstop keeper is totally updated. I think maybe, and this is funny because I think I did it, but I think I did it for all of the standard collateral types. So all of that is in there. The keeper did manage to function and took an auction yesterday. So we know that it worked, but it worked on one with decimals of 18. and it looked like the demo keeper like still had a problem with not like non-standard decimals, let's say. So the WBTC auction that happened. So I'm gonna try and debug that and see if I can figure that out. But there were plenty of other keepers in the ecosystem to take those auctions, and I guess I'll pause here and just mention that was the largest sort of single liquidation that the protocol's ever done. It was nearly 3 million. I forget, it was like 2 million and change. And 2 keepers showed up. One of them was a capitalized keeper, already had like half the funds and did a take. And the other one cycled the remainder on SushiSwap, or maybe it was the other way around. The SushiSwap happened first, and then the other keeper. And that's perfect. That's like a bunch of stuff that we spent a lot of time like designing and hoping would happen, and it occurred just how we wanted to. And I almost got sleep last night, but I didn't. So, and then we did a vote delegate review today. So there's a old contract from a few years ago that I had thrown together, and Sam recently like modernized it for today's standards. And so we're currently looking at a very light touch on vote delegation. So this is just a vote proxy that does delegation and would allow us to do delegation with the chief. So we're currently reviewing that. There's obviously just sort of like the weekly executive cycle. We've got the Oracle LPs, which I think Nick is going to talk more about, or may talk more about this week. And then that means that we're pushing Liquidations 2.0 back 1 week so we get that out, and then we can push the actual LP tokens to Liquidations 2.0. And that bought us enough time to also update the Clipper Callee and the demo auction keeper so that it can unwind those LP tokens. And it also allows us to just point at the new oracles when we do that spell. So it's kind of like the perfect place to interject the Oracle update. And then, so that's Oracle update this week, LPs next week. We're gonna do all the stable coins the week after that. And then we're gonna do probably the Sushi Join adapter the week after that. So that's the rough schedule. And I will leave it there. If there's anyone else on the protocol engineering team that wants to speak up and mention something, or if anyone has a question, feel free to ask. Was I pixelated, or do I look fluid?
I don't even see you. Did you mention the liquidation yesterday?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I think I did. I don't know. It's all a fever dream.
Yeah, you can do fine. Cool. All right. Any other questions before we move on? Looks like no. So let's throw it to oracles. Nick, do you have an update for us?
I almost wish I could I see Mariano's here for a change. It almost like feels like, hey Mariano, update us on oracles. And you're wearing a compound shirt. The fuck is this? What?
Mariano, why didn't you give the update for me?
Man.
I don't want to interrupt anybody. I had a maker shirt yesterday and I used it, and yeah, so I had to put something else on, but we're all friends here. It's like...
Anyways, good to see you again, man. But yeah, on the Oracle side, like Mooney said, we're doing the redeploy of the LP Oracle with the newly updated version that's post audit, along with some gas optimizations that Kurt made. So we're looking forward to that. Can save a little bit more money. So that'll be going out tomorrow. It's gonna cost a couple $1,000s in ETH, or more like $10,000 in ETH. But that's the world we live in now, apparently. On the core unit side, I posted 2 of the 3 MIP kind of sub proposals yesterday. The last one is going to be posted right after this call. So happy to see that some of you have already been looking that over, and looking forward to hearing your feedback for the remainder. The other thing we have to start looking at is that so the foundation is shutting down, right? And it committed to that pretty recently by sending over the remainder of the MKR in the dev multisig. So the foundation is kind of on a timer here, right? It has some money left, and that money is basically to pay people for salary that need to continue on until the shutdown, right? And for the token rewards that people are still owed. But there are costs, there are variable costs here, such as the Oracle costs, which are currently being absorbed exclusively by the foundation, and which are variable, right? So if gas costs double, the costs to the foundation for Oracles doubles as well. And so it's probably time with the backend services team splitting out of the foundation and the foundation shutting down, that the DAO starts taking over that responsibility. So in the next week, maybe 2 weeks, I over promise, under deliver, or under promise, over deliver, right? So let's say 2 weeks, and if you're lucky, it's 1 week. I'm gonna start posting on the forum about what that all looks like, right? What are we running here? Why is it built this way? What are the different costs? And how are we going to fund this? How are we going to structure funding this in a DAO, right? Like, are we going to look at what was the cost over the last 30 days? And that's the amount that you get for the following month, right? What kind of guarantees does the protocol want to have on, like maybe we can have like a multi-sig where, the protocol can like claw back that funding at any time. How do we want to handle the case where, it's one of those crazy days and gas spikes to like, 2000 gwei or something, right? It's Black Thursday levels. And, I'm pretty sure, I think we spent like, I think it was like $200,000 in a day on Oracles on Black Thursday. It got pretty nuts there for a while, right? So can we have some kind of emergency fund that, maybe the core unit doesn't have access to on its own, but it needs like, some ridiculous amount of the facilitators, right, to approve, being able to pull any funding from that. How do we want to handle the accountability, right, the auditing of this, right? You want to make sure that no one's going, personally just pulling out some money on the side from this stuff, right? So we probably need something like a excuse me, something like a token flow type of analysis, right, where you can see the flow of funds, right? And if you ever see funds that end up not going to a Oracle transaction, right, then you need some kind of alert saying like there's potentially some kind of fraud happening, right? So these are all kind of questions that I have some ideas about, but I really want to get feedback from the community to see how the community feels like most comfortable handling this. And yeah, it's this is going to kind of be the final step in like fully decentralizing the Oracles, right? They're going to be completely controlled and now funded by the protocol. So it's a big step.
Quick question, Nick. Would you say the main, and there's probably already in the forum, but the main cost is gas, right? Which, yep. At least the good thing is it's very easy to audit that the team is actually spending this money on gas, right? Because there's probably a known number of wallets. So I believe like we should be able to find a solution where the monitoring the gas cost on these is easy, and obviously if it is running low, then more ETH could be made available.
Yep, I'm I'm not worried about the auditing being too complex. I think it's actually quite simple. It's just I really want there to be an auditing component from the get-go, because I don't want to set this precedent where the DAO is just handing big buckets of money and trusting people more than without the corresponding kind of transparency. Right? You know, it's we're doing like a giant social experiment with our DAO here, and we want to do things right. Okay, and I think that's it from the Oracle side.
Perfect. Any other questions from anyone? All right, let's move on to risk then. Very much.
Yep. So I have only a few short updates this week. We are publishing final Uni LP liquidations 2.0 parameters. Proposal currently in the final internal review, so it should be posted, I think, latest tomorrow morning. Similarly, also finalizing Sushi LP collateral evaluations. So as Chris said, they could be onboarded right after the final liquidations 2.0 collaterals are implemented, so in about 2 weeks. And then we also updated our quarterly budget because the thing got changed a bit. In our proposal, you can also get some information on the tools we've been working on in the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to share 2 links here in the chat. Basically, we made, like I said, web dashboard that tracks risk metrics for each collateral type it maker in real time. I'll probably also make another forum post on this topic soon and actually explain what's the actual roadmap behind this product that we started calling Maker Risk Web App. And then finally, Chris mentioned we had about 3.2 million of Red Bitcoin liquidated yesterday under the new liquidation system. It was the biggest liquidation so far. The outcome was really promising. Basically, all the dev got cleared fast, or I should say as expected. The settlement time of auctions was between 40 and 45 minutes, which means that the slippage, which is also partially a function of keepers' profits that they made, was pretty small. So around between 1 to 5%. So that was really good to see. And the amounts that were bought, or so-called takes, were also very high nominal numbers. Keepers even used flash loan collateral type of auction buying, and I think SushiSwap was involved in an instant transaction. So this was really great to see. And that's more or less everything for this week from my side.
All right, thank you very much. Let's, I guess, move on to real-world finance then.
Yeah, sure. So on our side, we have pushed 2 risk assessments in the forum. So the first one is Arbor Trade Finance, which is trade finance, from William, and the second one is Fortunafy, which is revenue-based financing, published by Phil. We wanted to publish the people company risk assessment as well, but that might be pushed to next week. And so that means that you will have 3 or 4 real-world asset collaterals to evaluate in the following weeks. And currently, the expected date to be pushed on mainnet is the 2nd week of June. We are also working on the trust structure. So Matthew has published all the documents for the trust structure, so we will look for it. And we are also working on the trust side as well with SolarX and Rhino. We are making some progress there as well. I published a new budget for real-world finance. You can find it on the forum. And that's about it on my side. If you have some question, happy to answer them.
Okay, so I'm going to share the link here with the updates. General updates, we are starting to reaching out other networks and talking with them because we are seeing a huge opportunity for us of having DAI in other networks, as I mentioned the other week. Like, for example, we are thinking about how we can do a campaign with BitPay, which integrated DAI last week, but without having to be worried about the gas fees, because that's a problem when you are reaching out to retail. So we think we should like do something with all these side chains, layer 2 or other blockchains. So we are starting conversations with all of them and seeing what we can do with them. We also are working in identifying different use cases for DAI. I posted a list on the use cases that we are working. We want to identify like the value proposition of DAI or the maker protocol or vaults in each one of these use cases that we identified. But if you have ideas or you want to help us like creating this, just like send me a DM and I will be happy to work with you on that. And then, well, I have an announcement. We have a new member in our team. I'm super excited about this. And you may be asking why Mariano Conti is in the call. So he's joining us like our DeFi advisor, because we thought like we want to do more things with all the DeFi projects. We want to like work more closely to all the other protocols. We want more ideas, and we think Mariano is the best in that. He's also the greatest guy I know, and he's like very special for me because, well, Argentinian team. So I'm super happy and excited on having you, Marian, in the team. Now I have 2 Marians in the team. If you want to jump in and say something.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Nadia. So yeah, as you know, I've never really left DeFi. I'm still here, and you know, this past few months, I've been working with a lot of projects, a lot of protocols, you know, extending the network, and you know, seeing how the smart contracts team is really well managed with so many amazing people. Doesn't make sense for me to go back to programming, but here I do get to you know, help out Maker in a different way, but I think a very important way as well. So I wanna help out, you know, the BD team, get DAI into as many places as we can, you know, incorporating it from day one into so many of the new protocols and projects that have been coming out, that will come out. And as you can see, I do have the Maker shirt. I have Maker in my heart, as always. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. And so hope you will invite me again in this new role.
Awesome. Thank you, Marian. And that's all for the growth team for this week.
All right. Thank you, Nadia. Welcome back, Mariano. I think I speak for everyone to say everyone's thrilled. Yeah, if anybody else does want to say something briefly, feel free, but we can move on if not. I'm sure you have a list of people reaching out to you, Mariano. So. All right, let's move on then. Content production. Seth, do you want to give us an update?
Yeah, hey everyone. Thanks, Long. That's certainly going to be a tough follow. But yeah, if we haven't met before, I'm Seth. I'm facilitating the content production core unit. We just dropped our first update in the forum before this call, so I'll drop that link in the chat. Just to give a quick update about what we've been up to the past couple weeks. We've contributed to the production of Maker Relay episodes 43 and 44 in collaboration with GovComms. We've met with the CPA and started the incorporation process and onboarding with Opolis. We've reached out to a couple of CPAs, and to be honest, I wasn't thrilled with the responses that we got from them. So if anybody knows any CPAs that are based in the US and might be able to help us out, please, DM me if you have any referrals. We've worked on creating a transparency dashboard on our Notion page. We're working on getting that synced up with the domain. So I believe soon that'll be at content.makerdao.network. And along with that, we've worked on outlining our content strategy in OKRs. The brief summary of that is that in the short term, we want to focus on understanding the different journeys that stakeholders take when they first learn about MakerDAO and then become more involved, and optimize our digital properties to help move that traffic along and educate people and get them the answers they need to make decisions that help us. Part of the strategy for that will be to host a couple of webinars. They're going to be bi-weekly. One of them is going to focus on giving integrations partners a platform so that we can highlight what they're doing and also give people who are interested in building with DAI a chance to learn more about what the process looks like. And then in the long term, the big goal there is focusing on MakerDAO's brand. If you have a strong brand, people trust you, and you have customer loyalty. Brand is kind of a tricky thing because it can be a bit difficult to measure the strength of your brand, but we're gonna do what we can to find some ways to bring transparency around that. So yeah, please go read that, give us feedback. And we've also met with SES yesterday to start coordinating on managing and updating the community portal to get, start figuring out how to organize the content there. The community portal is in a really good spot in that it actually does better SEO wise than a lot of the content that's just on the domain itself. So we're trying to figure out a way to organize that to basically suit our plans. So yeah, that's our update for the week. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll kick it back to Long. Oh, I see Paper's question in the chat. We actually addressed the question about brand in the Notion. I know there have been some contentious conversations around brand before. There's kind of been some back and forth on that. And as far as brand goes, when you talk about brand, brand is ultimately an expression of why you do what you do. When you're talking to potential partners, it's easier for them to relate to the intentions behind what you're doing than the day-to-day of what you're doing. So our thoughts on how to approach that are to just focus on that, giving people opportunities to express that why, and let it come out organically rather than trying to have a conversation that, force everybody to agree on one thing. We don't imagine that will be productive. Wooter, would you mind clarifying which documentation you're referring to?
No, it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. We have a lot of documentation that's lying around in different places. Much of it technical documentation, but also some of it close to the content on the community portal. So at one point, we'd love to sit down with you guys and like see where we where we see the distinction and who takes care of which documentation, because I absolutely agree that the onboarding of new people into the ecosystem, that the access, the way they get access through the portal, through the other websites and documentation resources that are available, something that is absolutely critical to keep track of and make sure that everything is kept a little bit up to date. So yeah, that's just future discussion we may have.
Yeah, definitely. I'll DM so we can chat about that.
All right. I think that covers the questions for the time being, so maybe we should move on. Thank you very much, Seth. So our next update is from operational support, I guess /SES now. So maybe we'll put that in officially next agenda.
Yeah, quick update, since most of it's going to be covered by the MIP editor, I think. But yeah, it was quite an intense week in several fronts for core units. We will have several calls coming up to present core units. One of them is Marcoms with Kat. The other one is Oracles with Nick. Collateral onboarding with Monkey Irish, and I'll be happy to have a pros as well as the new facilitator for Governance Alpha. So stay tuned for that. Regarding the core unit informal submission, I'm not sure if the one of strategic Marcoms goes to RFC automatically or it stays until the end of the cycle. But there are new core units in RFC. So we have Oracles, as Nick mentioned. We have the collateral onboarding core unit. We have the strategic happiness core unit by Mr. Bourbon. And as I mentioned, pros as a Go Alpha facilitator. Then there are new budgets for risk, Go Alpha and SES that are quite interesting to read through. And regarding interesting posts, we have the help identify risk and opportunities published by SES. So if you see any risk or opportunities that MakerDAO should be pursuing, please help us identify them so we can do something about it. And then there are two posts regarding the maker compensation guidelines. One is the premium discussion and MIP 53 by Planet X, and the other one is an alternative for the maker compensation plan by SES. And yeah, that's it from us. I don't know if there are any questions. All right.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you, Juan. Cool. All right, that brings us to MIPS then. Who's doing the update this week? Is it David? I feel like it's David.
Yes, it is me. Sorry, my mic was muted. Yeah, so I'll share my screen for a few minutes. If I could find the window. All right, here it is. Okay, cool. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. My name's David. I'm a MIP editor here at MakerDAO and now contributor now that I left the foundation. So, woo. But anyway, let's get us through this weekly MIPS update. So, happy May, everybody. It is a really nice season. Spring is upon us. But yeah, a lot of stuff happening. So this is our current governance cycle. We're here on May 13th, Thursday, so we're coming up at the end of the inclusion poll. And so we're entering into week 3 of the May governance cycle. And so just to cover some of all of May's formal submissions, we have MIP 49, which is staking rewards. This is a proposal that rewards MKR holders for locking their MKR tokens in governance. We have MIP 50, the direct deposit module. This is an interface for Maker to interact with third-party lending protocols and basically provide DAI liquidity directly as a protocol. And then there's MIP 51. the monthly governance cycle, which defines a new monthly governance cycle for Maker. And I have a few special slides to kind of illustrate what the main changes are. And then we also have a MIP 0 amendment that just generally trims it down, brings it up to date, and makes it a little bit less intimidating for newcomers, and it doesn't alter any of the pre-existing logic. Now, before I get into the rest of the formal submissions, I want to focus on MIP 51, the monthly governance cycle, just for a couple slides here. So this next month, June, would look like this if we were to continue using the governance cycle that we currently use. With the revision, the calendar actually looks like this. So as you can see, we actually drop off 2 different like mandated reviews because we no longer have the inclusion review and the governance the MIP bundled the governance poll review. Sorry, I like mistitled that there. And then also the inclusion polls, the bundled governance poll and the bundled executive vote all get folded into a 1-2 week ratification poll. Well, not one, actually, individual non-bundled ratification polls that span for 2 weeks. And likewise, there's only 2 different submission reviews. Oh, sorry, there's only 2 different reviews that are part of the monthly cycle. There's the submission review at the very beginning of the month. It's a complete week 1. And then there's the governance cycle review just to review and confirm the results of the ratification polls. Ratification polls span for 2 weeks, and they are proposed to have a minimum positive participation of 10,000 MKR. So that means for the poll to pass, yes must exceed no when the poll closes, and also the yes vote weight must exceed the minimum positive participation value when the poll closes. And also, yeah, it's just a binary poll, so yes, no, abstain. I guess that's trinary, but you guys know what it means. All right, and then yeah, finally, to conclude May's formal submissions, there have also been two core unit MIP sets being submitted. One for strategic marcoms, which is a marketing team with a focus on DAI adoption. With a focus on regionally specific campaigns and programs. Kathleen Chu is being proposed as its facilitator. It has a proposed annual budget of approximately $4.7 million a year, and is also proposing a $5 million marketing opportunity fund called the Moonshot Fund. The team size is beginning with 6, and according to the mandate, there's 9 planned hires. And then the second core unit MIP set that is being submitted for this cycle is the Sustainable Ecosystem Scaling core unit, which is researching, incubating, and advising to support a decentralized, effective, and scalable economy on top of the Maker protocol. Really excited to see them. Their operational support upgraded, and we have Juan Julian running for its facilitator. And also for this core unit, the proposed annual budget is approximately $4.6 million a year, with a team size of 11 for the permanent team, with an additional 11 plus roles being supported through the incubation that their core unit proposes as part of their mandate. So all in all, for this cycle, we have 3 MIPs, 2 core unit MIP sets, and 1 amendment being proposed. Just to give us like what's happening in the governance cycle. So this week we have the inclusion polls that went live on Monday, May 10th, and they actually ended today, right before this governance call. So today we're going to have an inclusion poll review by Long for Wisdom, I believe, pretty much directly after this presentation. And then for next week, we're going to have the usual bundled MIPS governance poll. It's going to go live on the Monday and end Thursday right before the governance call as usual. And then Thursday, Long is going to do the governance poll review as usual. And so that's pretty much it. Any questions, feel free to ask. Generally speaking, hell yeah, go vote. Also, please participate in the forums. There are a handful of really interesting new MIPs up for RFC, including DSS Vest, including a couple of new core units, a few new budgets actually for core units that already exist, and more. So if you're an active contributor, maker, holder, participant in the forums, dig in because there's lots to cover. So thank you.
Great, thank you, David. just I guess follow up from that on the reviews, the inclusion review stuff. I covered this a little bit earlier, but I'll kind of reiterate here. So we saw, I think, 4 of the 6 polls that had inclusion polls passed those polls, and 2 that did not. For the past were MIP 50, the direct deposit module, the SES core units MIP set, including like budget, mandate, and facilitator. The MIP 0 clarity amendments passed or continued again. It's not quite over yet. MIP 51 also passed the inclusion poll. Just to quickly clarify on MIP 51 and the new governance cycle, that only comes into effect assuming the rest of this cycle is successful, right? It hopefully will be, and I don't have any reason to expect that it won't be, but technically it's not kind of locked in until that date. Same for the other proposals. The 2 inclusion polls that failed to end successfully were the strategic Marcoms core units and the staking rewards. I think MIP 49 it was. So as I mentioned before, those will either go back to RFC if the authors want to resubmit them next cycle, or be dropped if that's what the authors decide. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our posted agenda. So we can kind of move into the sort of discussions and general Q&A section of the meeting. So I know there was a few. Someone jumped in. I was going to say, I know there's a few kind of more heated than usual forum discussions in the last little while, especially around strategic Marcoms. So if people want to talk about that, we can, but let's try and keep things kind of in good faith and respectful of all involved.
Is it okay if I talk about MIP 49 real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so as Long said, unfortunately it didn't pass. I just want to direct people's attention to this exit poll that Peyton set up. Just sort of trying to figure out why people were unsatisfied with the MIP. In particular, I've heard some concerns about tax efficiency, US securities laws, and locking periods. But just if you're a no voter, please like explain yourself so maybe we can address those concerns. Like, I would still like to proceed with this because I think the main problem is we do have a prisoner's dilemma in that maker holders are not personally financially incentivized to lock their maker into governance. So I think this is a problem that's not going to go away even with like delegation. So I do think this is something we need to address. It may not be a problem right now. Delegation may mitigate this, but in the long term, I do see this as fundamentally a prisoner's dilemma that needs to be solved.
What makes you believe that in the long term? So the only reason, as someone who has their MKR on Aave, and the only reason that it is rational to do that is because there is a spread between what it costs to borrow money and the yield you can get with that money. And the only reason that spread exists is because people really like governance shitcoins. They place a lot of value on them. That is not sustainable. Governance shitcoins are still shitcoins. And right now we're in a market cycle, right, where it's very popular, like, to value governance shitcoins, but it's not sustainable. And as soon as the yield disappears, there won't be a reason to keep your maker in Aave, and the problem just kind of disappears. So it is a problem, but it is a short-term problem. I don't see it being like a long-term problem. And so what I never understood was with your proposal was it doesn't get anyone to vote more. It doesn't secure the hat. It just tries to get MKR off of Aave, which to me seems like the reason I'm so gung-ho about delegation. I mean, yeah, like, it's more profitable for me, but with delegation, you actually secure the hat, right? Like, people aren't going to delegate to someone who like doesn't actually even like end up voting, right? So you do actually get more MKR on the hat. You do actually increase the security of the system rather than worrying about how you decrease the pointiness of the stick that's coming from Aave.
So I just want to kind of sort of answer that a little bit, Nick, because you sort of the main first half of your statement was this is a short-term problem, and you're correct in that the yield from Aave is definitely, well, it's presumably short-term. The issue is there is always going to be an opportunity cost for capital, right? Like if you lock up capital in governance in Maker, you can't use it for something else. Like, you know, it stops you taking, like, you know, borrowing against it, right? Like, you know, it stops you taking credit on it. It stops you potentially investing in other things if there is yield elsewhere, right? So it's not just that there's yield, it's like that opportunity cost, right? That if you put your capital in Maker and you put it in governing Maker, then you can't take credit on it. You can't use it for anything else. So I don't think that problem does go away in the future.
Yeah, that's basically my view as well.
So I wonder how much of the people who have their MKR on Aave are using it to do the carry, right? Which is you're just pocketing the spread off of, you know, the difference to borrowing dollars and farming with dollars versus doing what you're doing, or what you're suggesting, Long, is where you are borrowing and then using it for leverage, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, right? Like I suspect, as you was kind of implying, that it's mostly towards yield at the moment. But I don't think that's always going to be true. And the other thing to consider is, like, not only is governance like an opportunity cost, like it's an actual cost in like time and attention. I mean, I guess not for delegation, but for people that do want to sort of pay attention and do things actively, right? They are paying a cost to do that. So
yeah, effectively the way I look at it, it's like the people who are loaning out their Maker on Aave for whatever reason are effectively socializing the cost of security to the rest of the holders. And so the idea behind MIP 49 is I want to correct that sort of imbalance. So you can loan out your Maker on Aave and all that, and you know, if the opportunities dry up, so be it, we turn it off. But I suspect they'll continue in some form. And like, as they do, I would like some tool to combat that.
I mean, the other thing is just, can we convince Aave to just stop borrowing of MKR, right?
Well, I mean, we could get like another, if we do that sort of antagonistic approach, I think just another competitor will pop up. So I want sort of a.
I've heard you make that argument before, but there's not going to be another Aave that just pops up out of nowhere. And Compound hates us. They're not listing Maker.
Okay, but I mean, I think there will be at some point.
Sure what the difference between Maker on Aave is and Maker just sitting idle in a wallet. Like, to me, it's the same issue.
Maker on Aave can be borrowed and used to attack the system. I think that's the root of the concern. Whereas Maker sitting in a wallet can't.
It's kind of like saying like flash loans are bad, right? Because they let everyone do this one thing, right? But you know, there's already, to Brian's point, there's already people who have that much MKR out there who could, you know, just do a governance attack right now, right? So from a like whether the attack is broadly possible by many people versus just some people, like the attack is possible because we can't secure the hat. So I feel like that should be the priority.
There's a big difference between you owning the Maker and you borrowing the Maker. You have like exposure to Maker the asset if you own it, and you do not have exposure to it if you're borrowing it.
You can do a gov vote and immediately just, you know, dispose of your MKR. I mean, there's other ways to do it, right, without having to sell into liquidity, right? You can just open up a short to hedge.
I mean, you have to maintain the Maker for the entire duration of the vote. So I don't think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think that is kind of a separate problem, Nick. I agree, which we probably should address at some point, like with time locks or some other method. Yeah.
Although I think you have to consider here and remember that it's always possible to sort of build permissionless derivatives for staked tokens, right? Like, you know, ETH2, it was supposed to be proof of stake and not delegated proof of stake. And then what happened is people just, you know, built delegated proof of stake, and now there are staking derivatives that give you instant liquidity on something that's supposed to be locked, and there's some discount for that, but it's, you know, not huge, right? And so you have to think, like, do we really solve the problem long term doing this, or are we just solving it for a couple years or however long it takes people to decide to build locked MKR derivatives that are liquid and, you know, get you 90% of what it would be if we didn't have the rewards and locking and stuff. So
yes,
that's
so
just
I addressed that in the post. I think the amount of effort that's required to make a derivative that's liquid and is adopted by Aave and all these kinds of things is a much, much higher effort than it would take for us to just blacklist that token from the rewards. Like this process on our side could be like even on a multi-sig with governance override, of course, and just sort of like, if somebody does do all this work for months and kind of builds us up, oop, you're blacklisted it. So it's like a pretty credible threat in my view.
I mean, but how does that blacklisting process work exactly? I don't know. I would need to think through the game theory here a little bit more before I just totally buy that solves the problem.
Yeah, for sure. Please do.
It's presumably governance, right? That's a governance vote of some sort, and you know, it might be very tricky. Like, what if people like ultimately, you know, like you can imagine people going to the trouble of building like tornado cache mixers type things or something, and all right, obviously, if we at least make people have to go that far, it probably reduces the number of people who are willing to do it. So it might still be valuable, but yeah, I need to think about it a bit more.
Yeah, it's definitely not a trivial like impact, I think, or like not trivial to sort of map out the impacts. Although I do think it's, well, yeah, I think it is probably net beneficial personally.
So I know that I forgot what channel it was it governance and risk or speculation, but Greg mentioned that it seemed like there were some very large MKR holders who might be interested in delegating their MKR. And I have no clue to the validity of that, right? But I feel like it's something we should at least try.
Yeah, I can comment on that really quickly. So, you know, they have a bunch of reasons they want to do it, but what I've found when talking to the large holders is that they will delegate if you give them the option, and they will make sure they delegate to people who participate, and this will account for a significant portion of the MKR.
Yeah, I think this is a great solution for getting voting up and getting more maker on the hat, but I think it's a separate issue.
So what is the issue you're trying to solve here? I don't understand. Like, if you can secure the protocol, nothing else matters.
Fundamentally, it's what I said, it's the prisoner's dilemma. Individuals are encouraged to defect from securing the protocol by moving their maker somewhere else. That's more.
If you delegate, the protocol is secure. Like
yeah, so this may work for the short term for a while. I just am concerned about the long term.
Yeah, so maybe I'll comment. Like I said this before, like people are not always perfectly rational, right? So like it's possible this will just work forever, like delegation, and that'll be fine. The key thing is,
why are we dealing with imaginary problems? Let's deal with the problems in front of us, right? Like, just like this argument, like, oh, if you stop the borrowing of MKR on Aave, like someone else will come up. Like, you know, this is not like where from one week to the next someone magically shows up that you don't see coming, right? Let's deal with the problems that are right in front of us.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think we should give delegation a shot. More, I was just planning ahead. I wanted to get ahead of this, but I'm okay with seeing how things go.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would, like, maybe not now, as you say, it's not the biggest problem, but I would expect those who are actively governing the protocol to implement this at some point themselves, because they are paying the costs on behalf of everyone, right? Like, it's in their best interests to implement something. And furthermore, they have all the voting power, so they will vote something in, right?
We
to do
can
that.
always implement a solution in the future with retroactive airdrops or something where we just scan the chain for voting participants and build a Merkle distributor so it's cheap for us and everybody can just claim rewards. So it's a little more manual that way, but there are alternative solutions available too.
I guess what kind of scares me about those solutions is they're not tied to how well the protocol is doing. Like one of the things I really liked about this was staking rewards only got paid when we were otherwise going to be burning MKR. So part of the reason, at least from a governance perspective, why I thought this was important was to kind of establish that, hey, if we are going to reward people, it needs to be directly tied to how well the protocol is doing, and not to people deciding to vote to give themselves more capital.
Well, I mean, with a retroactive airdrop, you'd actually have the history, like you'd know if they voted well or not, and then you'd look back and develop a history on that.
But couldn't you say, all right, let's do more, right? You can just up it more and more because it's not tied to performance.
I mean, can't you also just tie the value of the airdrop to like the performance, like however much was accruing in the surplus buffer, however much you expect it to be burned or something?
The difficult part about this is more judging like which votes are like positive, right? Like it's really hard to say like, oh, okay, this vote led to higher.
Oh yeah, you don't want to pick winners, right? You don't want to like punish people for voting the wrong way, right? Like that's terrible.
Well, they punish themselves, right? Because they're not going to get a very big airdrop if they voted the wrong way. So if you base it off of like surplus buffer,
that's
and
a whole new game. Like,
what is the wrong way is the problem?
Yeah, like because then I'm like trying to predict what the majority is going to choose, and that's a horrible way to do the democracy.
Yeah, let's yeah, we're getting a little bit off track here.
Yeah, I'm not filling out a MIP for a retroactive airdrop anyways, so I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, I think that's clear. Cool. So let's maybe move on to other topics. I know there are like other MIPs and other things people might want to discuss. He says hopefully. Is there anything else anybody that's come up recently that people want to talk about or raise on this call?
Just for since I was one pushing for the Marcom's core unit, my campaign didn't go so well, but so if they get to see this video, because I know a lot of them are in different time zones, just stay positive, come back, bounce, listen to the community, and yeah, make a presentation with Juan's TV show and stuff, and explain what exactly you're going to do, and yeah, we'll run another campaign and hopefully get it passed next time.
Yeah, Frank, we're already in talks to organize the TV show and make sure that everyone can be there to provide feedback and ask the questions that they want to.
Nice. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. On this topic, I just wanted to say, like, we probably do need to come up with a better process for this, right? Because I think a lot of people were just, concerned with elements of their proposal, and that's perfectly fine. Like, but it's nearly impossible for like a group like that to negotiate with a DAO without like everyone's like emotions getting enraged. Yeah. So anyway, I know that when we went through the ringer with our proposal that that it was like just like it certainly was a distraction for our team, and it started to like kind of border on the edge of counterproductive, and I think it would have been pretty rough if it hadn't have passed. But the thing is, it's okay if it doesn't pass. What we need to do is find a method that maybe doesn't burn a potential team to the ground because the treatment was just so damn harsh. So maybe we all need to like think about maybe more like in-person or video discussions of these things. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. Anyway, that's my piece. I'm concerned that this will happen with other teams and teams that we need or want. Negotiate like better terms with them. and including like, you know, protocol engineering or any other team. So, so I don't know, maybe we need to figure out like a better methodology for how to do this.
One idea that I had for a better methodology, just coming in before like a core unit goes through the full, you know, ratification through the MIPS vote, is maybe before that we could use like the weekly cycle, or even like the month that it's in RFC, to run some polls. And this is going to be obviously a lot easier when we do like snapshot voting rather than on-chain voting. But being able to get like some you know, sentiment analysis from MKR voters themselves about details in the proposals that like people point out in the forum would be really powerful. So like, okay, we need clearer objectives. I updated my objectives, but like, you know, how do I find out if they're clear enough? Or like, how do I find out if I'm really appeasing the voters? But yeah, having some sort, I totally agree with Chris.
Yeah, I think what sort of Chris said was sort of kind of well said, and definitely something we need to kind of think about, right? I think like as I said in this sort of chat, that incubators are obviously going to be like one of the things that helps us kind of get over this sort of thing for new teams. Well, do you want to sort of kind of speak a bit to that at all, or are you good?
I can make the point. So I totally agree with the points that Chris brought up. I think there's an even broader issue, which is that the governance process, for good reasons, takes quite a long time and requires quite a long time of commitment to go through. I think it's definitely 3 months, right? So even if the process formally only takes 2 months, you definitely need a month to prepare the RFC that you will be posting. Then you need to wait a month for comments, and once again for good reasons, I think. And then the formal submission happens, and then it takes another month before you learn in the executive vote whether you're out of a job or your proposal passed, and you can start working on the thing that you've been committed to now for 3 months, right? And that's just, it works at the moment, sort of, but it's very intense, as people note that. And it works because we have a lot of people who are already involved with the DAO through the foundation, have a track record, and there is some confidence that these teams will be accepted. But for an external team trying to participate in the maker economy, it's just not reasonable. So that's the reason why we think that the incubator pattern, and we hope that SES will be far from the only incubator or incubating core unit, right? We hope there to be many core units that apply the incubator pattern. That is so important, because then you have the 3 months where at least the people can already get paid that are on the team. They can get better guided towards a proposal that is in line with the culture and the expectations of the community, because that's the other thing we see, is that it's typically the people who haven't been directly engaging with the community that have trouble bringing the proposal in a way that makes for a strong argument to the audience. It also means that the business model will probably make sense, because the incubator would support those teams to build a business model that makes sense in the DAO, an environment that should be known by the supporting crew. And then the third thing is just the reputation of the incubator itself, right? So there can already be a filter there. Projects that don't make sense should get canceled earlier on, so they fail fast, and that's not as bad, and just doesn't take away all the motivation from people who went through something for 3 months and then heard that the answer is no. And the reputation of the incubator can really help to create more certainty that the team is set up for success and that the vote will pass. So that there are enough signals throughout that process, and that the vote is becomes almost a formality, right? And of course, it has a very important role as like the last ditch defense for bad things happening. But in 99% of the cases, it could be almost a formality. And yeah, that's the reason why I believe that incubators are absolutely critical for this growth and the success of the maker ecosystem.
Yep, I think yeah, I think you made a lot of great points there, Walter. I think seeing a lot of agreement in chat as well. So. Is there any other sort of questions, discussions, comments people want to make, either on that topic or others? We do have our anonymous question box to maybe check again. Peyton, I don't know if you have had a look at that recently, but
nothing new.
Oh, I think there was one question, just generally speaking, about core units diversifying their treasuries, so to speak. So like if the protocol is giving them DAI for some float up front, you know, I think the protocol engineering mentioned like, you know, turning some of it into USDC, even like potentially holding Ether as a team. And I was curious about like people in this call's thoughts on that.
I mean, for Gov Alpha, it doesn't feel like something I want to manage in addition to everything else that the core unit does, personally.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just to clarify, the PE team wants to turn the emergency fund partially into USDC
okay.
in the event of like a protocol failure. So definitely don't want to give the wrong idea to the media on that one.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, my bad for misunderstanding, but yeah.
Yeah, in emergency shutdown, DAI basically becomes ETH, well, in USDC based on relative proportions.
Got it.
Yeah, and so my suggestion earlier in the chat was that maybe the DAO as a whole would hold and stake ETH or should have some sort of kind of financial planning around that. Because like by staking ETH, you can get income denominated in ETH, which is great because gas costs are very variable. You know, I think in general, the DAO is going to have a lot of need to fund, you know, on-chain activities of the various core units. And, you know, like right now, okay, we just let everything sit in the surplus buffer, and that has advantages and disadvantages. And I think it's worth considering different, you know, structures of capital and stuff to try to ensure, you know, smooth operating ability through various market conditions. It's sort of just a very preliminary thought. So it's just something that sort of came to mind. We're discussing the problem of getting ETH to fund operations. You know,
the other reason we might want to diversify these funds is just because we've spent the last year fighting DAI above PEG, and rather than having DAI sitting on balance sheets, we just want to get that out into the world.
So from what I'm hearing, like it makes sense more from like a protocol security perspective, just so that we're not like too reliant on DAI as like the central point of failure, which we obviously hope it never fails. But on the other side, for core units themselves to actually hold their budget in alternative assets, that's like a whole different story, and nobody's really considering that too seriously.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's just for the emergency failure case, right? Because the whole point of the emergency funds is some strange black swan has happened, and you need teams to continue to be able to operate to either fix it or to clean the mess up afterwards. And so, yeah, if DAI goes to zero or fails in some way, or becomes like highly volatile, then those, you know, then we can't guarantee any kind of cleanup or handling of that. It's probably like super critical for like operations, right? Operations, protocol engineering, oracles, all probably need to think about this.
We can consider a situation where emergency shutdown is triggered DAI effectively becomes ETH, and then the market FUD just drops the price of ETH. So we're in a bad situation as far as being able to fund anyone.
Although I'll say that given one of our other common like black swan concerns is some sort of, regulatory action, if all of a sudden the order comes down of like, all maker protocol teams are hereby blacklisted and USDC just, shuts off those emergency funds, that would also be bad. It would be nice if there were another Cadillac decentralized stablecoin, but Chris is suggesting Rye. I mean,
No, Rye would actually be really bad, because if the black swan was a bug in the maker protocol, Rye would probably suffer the same bug.
It's also pegged to ETH.
Yeah, it's a volatility soothed ETH. It's not really a dollar stablecoin.
Yeah, LPs make it the way to go, like Brian was saying.
I mean, something like Curve LP tokens maybe would almost be a better hedge. You're still partially exposed to DAI, but if DAI doesn't undergo complete failure.
Let me just cap this off with saying this is all defense in depth and just trying to imagine what might happen, just for anybody that's watching this on YouTube or wondering, like, we have a lot of confidence in the teams and the protocol and the safety. This is just us making sure that the airplane stays in the air by having tertiary backup systems.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time thinking about all of the things that can go wrong, so you don't have to. But sometimes, yeah, they make it into public discourse.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is it's a confidence building thing, right? Like if everything explodes, then at least you have people who are going to try and clean it up and make sure you get at least some of what you're owed, right? Whereas without that guarantee, then it's just like everything explodes and then everyone's on their own. So
I'd phrase it this way: we have currently the luxury of being able to worry about these crazy black swan events rather than, deal with immediate emergencies. So, I mean, things are going well enough that we can spend our time thinking about the worst case scenarios.
yeah, Nadia is making the counterpoint in the sidebar. Feel free to say as well, Nadia.
Yeah, like I understand what you're saying, guys, and totally get it. But like how it will look if someone outside knows that our smart contracts team is using the emergency fund and it is in USDC just in case DAI fails. Like, I understand why you thought about that, but it's complicated from a business point of view when you are like trying to convince someone to integrate the maker protocol.
I think when we've been discussing this in the team, we've been looking at it from a risk perspective. So I don't think in any case we would put all the funds in one particular collateral type. I think there would be a balance. We're yet to assess, what that balance looks like. Is it LP tokens? Is it a basket of stable coins? Is it some sort of an index? I think that's something we still have to discuss and come around to. I'm almost certain that DAI is going to play a role in that, whatever it looks like. We're talking about the fund here that doesn't get used for the monthly to monthly payments. It's something that hopefully will never be touched, but in the event that it is, that there is that stability there through having some index of funds or some broad distribution of collateral types that makes sense. So yeah, I don't think anyone would look at this as us not having confidence in the product that we're building. It's looking at it from the long-term perspective of stability and just in case scenarios that we cover off that risk.
Yeah,
and to add to that, it's a very small percentage, right? Sorry, Wouter, go ahead.
I think the bigger issue here, and we've we've dealt with that a few times in the past, is that because this is all in the open, people are seeing things that they're not used to seeing with traditional companies. So if a bank like hedges against their own stock or whatever, you will not read about it because it's not advertised, right? If we do it because we discuss it in these calls, because we are an open community, then suddenly it's a headline on CoinDesk, and it's a very tricky thing to deal with in terms of marketing and PR. But I do think that the right way to deal with it is to explain it and maybe discuss it in the right forums. So maybe separate the emergency discussions from the the more accessible discussions, and make it clear that this is standard operations. You should be worried if we weren't be doing that. I do think it would be a bad reflex to stop, let's say, building fire exits because it reminds people that it could be a fire. And yeah, that it's a challenge for open projects that will need to learn how to deal with that. But it's definitely a challenge. We've seen this in the past, where something a purely procedural safety thing was completely taken out of context and seen as a weakness instead of what it actually is, which is proper and responsible risk management.
Yeah, this is an insurance policy, not or a hedge.
All right. Maybe that's a good place to end that particular topic, seeing as we're getting close to the end of the meeting as well. So maybe we'll think about wrapping up, unless anyone has any sort of final points, comments, shout outs, or anything for meetings they want to do.
Yeah, shout out to Greg D for his move. Maybe he can give us a quick explainer of what exactly he's doing and all those assets he's going to bring to the protocol. Right, Greg?
I can do that quickly. So basically, I started a company that is intending to bring institutional borrowers to the protocol. It's been exciting to see the first crop of borrowers get in, but this kind of gives us a path to expand. The thing that I think I'm going to do to differentiate myself is really focus on the safety of the protocol. I want to make sure that the structures and the counterparties are just absolutely top tier, so it makes it easy for maker holders to approve these assets. And I'm also on the other side of the coin. I'm going to come in asking for big debt ceilings. So I guess keep your eyes open, and you'll see some MIP6s soon.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to seeing how that pans out. Did you have something, Bevan?
Yeah, I mean, so I was talking to a friend yesterday. I don't mean to spread fun, but one reason he doesn't have as much maker as I do, he's like, yeah, the regulatory hammer is going to come down probably at some point. Like, you guys are peddling like a synthetic dollar, and there's like blacklisted countries, and they're going to like, they might like come down hard on us in particular for like issuing a competitor to the dollar and allowing listed countries to transact in dollars, whereas they don't know what kind of protections we might have from that, or how much thought was given to whims of powers that be right now. You guys hear me better now?
That is better, yes.
Slightly, yeah.
So I had my volume down.
Oh, better.
Okay, so no one heard anything I said. Okay, so I have a friend that is he's bullish on Maker, but doesn't have nearly as much as he would. His concern is that there might be like a regulatory like hammer that comes down
because Maker is issuing like a stable, dollar, synthetic dollar, sort of an indirect competition to the U.S. dollar, and apparently there's like certain blacklisted countries that the U.S. does not want transacting in dollars, and there's like laws in place to like punishable by 30 years or something like that for anyone that allows this to happen. And like, are we breaking all these laws? How much thought have we given to like protecting ourselves from something like that? Maybe affecting us. Party contract, not. I mean, just. Yeah, I mean, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I'm sure this has been thought about.
Yeah, it's maybe not a topic we can cover in the last 2 minutes of the meeting, to be honest, Bevan. But like, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I know the foundation's been thinking about this for a while, right? All this sort of stuff for a while, right? Yeah, I'm not sure there's any answers, like all sort of straight answers at this point, right?
Okay. Just I guess it's something that I want people to think about. And I'm wondering, we could talk about my MIP a little later.
We could do when we get to the end of the meeting, so we'll maybe just we'll just wrap up. But yeah, we can absolutely talk about your MIP in the next meeting. Cool. All right. Yeah, we're about 1/2 past, so we'll leave it there, I think. Thank you everyone for coming, and I'll talk to you all soon.
Anyone staying after?